Two aspects have been covered in the movie Kashmir Files, which were overlooked by this generation of youth and which were made latent by the so called political youth all this while. First, the incessant apathy of Kashmiri pundits, which was ignored by the leftist media and pseudo intellectuals. Second, the capture of educational institutions by the so called leftist intelligentsia. Seldom do we say that history is his story, but fail to understand that Indian history has been written by wrong men. Historians like Romila Thapar were directed by the congressmen to write NCRT books in such a manner that would glorify Congress's freedom struggle. Little did we realize that the Indian National Congress had nothing Indian about itself. It was established by A.O. Hume, an Englishman itself, in 1885. Later, many people got to know that this historian is a distant relative of Indira Gandhi. Hence, one could easily understand the link. The mere glorification of Congress, sidelining of the apathy of Kashmiri pundits, appeasement of minorities, polarization, vote bank politics, hence is self-explanatory. The coverage of the apathy of Kashmiri pundits was never the priority of the leftist media. Their only agenda was and is a false representation of the situation of minorities, disregarding the suffering of Kashmiri Hindus. Their fear of not using the term Islamic terrorism and instead coining the term Hindu terror has already done much harm to the Indian society. The leftist brigade also suppressed the voices who spoke against Islamic State sponsored terrorism. This led not just to the propagation of terrorism on ground, but also led to perpetuation and penetration of terrorism inside educational institutions like JNU and AMU. In fact, there have been first-hand accounts of people who have seen miscreants burning the tricolor inside the campuses of these so-called educational institutions. But the question is, what led us to us not recognizing the pain and agony of Kashmiri Pandits, and instead we actually sympathized with the wrong people? This is the dichotomy which the protagonist of the movie is facing. Unless and until he is not made to understand his family's background story, he is a rebel. This is what today's youth is like. They are trapped into this vicious cycle that the reason for all their problems is religion. But that's not the case. Religion instead has empowered them. It is only the leftist political parties and intelligentsia which has pulled them backward. Before catcalling the previous Congress governments, they raised question to this government, little realizing that it was Congress's Nehru who ordered arrest of Sheikh Abdullah. It was Nehru who never allowed a plebiscite to take place in Kashmir. It was Nehru who led Pakistan to internationalize Kashmir. It was Congress whose intelligence failure led to the infiltration of militants into Kashmir. It was Sanjay Gandhi who ordered forced sterilization at Turkman Gate in Delhi. It was Rajiv Gandhi who overturned the SC judgment of granting Shah Bano and alimony. Sadly, this was something which was never told to us by the leftist media and intelligentsia all this while.